Hello, my name is Chloe Knox. In this video, I'll be demonstrating some flexibility assessments. The Apley Test assesses mobility of the shoulder complex. This person has a good range of motion in shoulder extension, meaning their anterior deltoid isn't tight. As for shoulder flexion, the humerus should be in line with the ear. This individual has a good range of motion here, but if not, then it would be most likely due to a tight Latissimus Dorsi or pectorals. Normal range of motion is the fingertips 1/5 length apart. I seem to have more than enough mobility. From a lateral perspective, you can see that my humerus is in line with my ear and my back is slightly hyperextended. The back should not hyperextend in this position, and this may be a compensation. With the other side, I appear to be symmetrical in regards to range of motion. From the lateral view, it appears that my left humerus has more range of motion in shoulder flexion than my right humerus, due to the position of my humerus behind my ear. This could mean my Latissimus dorsi is tighter on the right side. This could cause uneven movement patterns in exercises such as pull-ups or rows. Corrective exercises for the asymmetry could include a single arm lat pull down, single arm dumbbell rows, and slow negative pull-ups to ensure that there is no uneven movement pattern and eccentrically stretch the lat. Next is the trunk flexion test. From the curvature of the spine, you can see that I generally have a good amount of mobility. If the lumbar spine was tight, then we would see less curvature in that area. The posterior view allows you to see if there is any pelvic tilt during spinal flexion. It seems there is no pelvic tilt. Limits in spinal flexion are important to know for exercise programming. If a person had limited range of motion in their lumbar spine, this could mean difficulty performing compound movements such as deadlifts. A tight lumbar spine could also contribute to an anterior pelvic tilt if it continued to worsen. Child's pose is a stretch that could help lengthen the lumbar spine. It is also a good idea to incorporate exercises that would strengthen the lower abdominals, such as hanging toe touches or V-ups. Next is the trunk extension assessment, which assesses flexibility in the lower abdominals and the iliopsoas. I seem to have a good flexibility in my lower abdominals and iliopsoas due to the top portion of my pelvis remaining on the floor. If this assessment would have failed, then we would want to stretch the abdominals, the iliopsoas, and strengthen the lumbar spine and the quadriceps. In that case, I would incorporate trunk extension and forward lunges with an extended knee to stretch the participants' lower abdominals and iliopsoas. Forward lunges could be used to unilaterally strengthen the quadriceps. Back extensions could also help strengthen the lumbar spine while stretching the lower abdominals. Next, we're assessing bilateral hip flexion. The goal of this assessment is to be able to reach 120 degrees of hip flexion while maintaining a neutral pelvis. With a goniometer, it was measured that I reached 130 degrees of hip flexion. This assessment can also be performed unilaterally, which would be easier for someone with less range of motion, but also requires more awareness about the position of the pelvis. Tight hip extensors could inhibit a lot of exercises in a program and could really impact form. High box step-ups, deficit reverse lunges, good mornings, and single leg RDLs are all good exercises to lengthen the glutes and proximal hamstrings. Here is the knee flexion assessment. This is mainly assessing range of motion of the rectus femoris due to the knee flexion and hip extension. The test is failed if the hip adducts or flexes. Since my heel is within 2 inches of my gluteal and it is the same on the other side, my rectus femoris doesn't seem to be tight. If I did struggle with this position, then form for compound movements such as back squats and front squats could be compromised. As a corrective strategy, I would implement exercises such as forward lunges, goblet squats, and a rectus femoris stretch to help strengthen and lengthen the quadriceps. Next is the active straight leg raise test. This assesses mobility in the hamstrings and calves due to the angle of hip flexion, knee extension, and foot dorsiflexion. No abduction or knee flexion should occur. A goniometer would be ideal in this situation, but it appears I reached at least 90 degrees of hip flexion, so I passed the test. If I did have limited mobility along my hamstrings, then this could prevent proper form in deadlifts and could also put me at a higher risk for injury. Exercises such as good mornings and single leg RDLs would help this imbalance. Here we're going to be performing the Thomas test. When the knee is extended, the test assesses the iliopsoas. You want to make sure the hip doesn't abduct at any point during the test. Here I reached a level of hip extension beyond 0 degrees, a negative number, so I have passed. A goniometer could be used in this situation to determine if there is any bilateral asymmetry. I appear to have no asymmetry in iliopsoas flexibility and have optimal range of motion. Next, the rectus femoris is being stretched since the knee is flexed. Make sure the hip doesn't abduct in this position. This is what it would look like had it been abducted. I passed this assessment since I passed 0 degrees of hip extension. If my quadricep had been tight, then I would need corrective exercises such as forward lunges to unilaterally stretch the tighter quadricep. This way my form would not be compensated in compound movements. If there had been tightness in my iliopsoas, then corrective strategies such as an extended leg lunge or squatting frog lunges could be used to lengthen the muscle. That is all I have for this assignment. Thank you.